There's a lot going on in the real estate market, in the first 5 months of 2025, particularly the months of April and May and part of June. This activity is now being reflected in the June 2025 market stats. I'm going to go through the salient features of the TREB market stats together with keeping in mind the 7 factors that determine or that affect property value. My name is Nico James-Bock. I am a broker at Keller Williams Co-Elevation Realty in Toronto. This is a new episode of helping you build wealth through real estate, brick by brick. I'm going to start with the home price index composite benchmark. The MLS HPI composite benchmark tracks typical home prices over time, adjusted for differences in house type as well as location. It's designed to show price trends without being skewed by unusually high or low sales, unlike the average or median price. The composite part of the term, composite benchmark, combines data from all home types. So detached, semi-detached, condo, townhouse, etc., across a region, providing a single price index that reflects overall market movement. For the month of June, we saw the home price index composite benchmark dip down 5.5% year over year. The GTA average home price was also down slightly, 5.4% year over year to $1,101,691. The sales rebounded to a 5-month high, however, at 5,068. Units, which translates to an 8.1% month over month increase. If we look at these values in terms of graphically, so the charts that I have for those that are watching the podcast, the year over year 5.4% decline is shown. So from June 2024 to June 2025, the 5.4% decrease is 1,164,491 last year and 1,001,681 this year. Seasonally adjusted price is just down 0.1%. So seasonally adjusted price for May 2025 is 1,069,427, whereas June, the last month, it's 1,068,319. So just a 0.1% difference compared to the previous month. Total residential transactions are down slightly, 2.4% compared to last year. So June 2024, we saw 6,397 residential real estate transactions take place. June 2025, we're seeing 6,245. Not a huge difference, just a 2.4%. And that is not unusual in the sense that so much has gone on and the inventory in the marketplace has increased. The buyer sentiment has taken a turn. We were leaving 2024 feeling quite good and bolstered, and there was an increase in activity. However, at the start of towards the end of January 2025, when the new president took office, and there was obviously talk of tariffs and trade wars. That changed. That changed significantly the sentiment. And then when the tariffs actually kicked in, there was a lot of uncertainty around which products would receive those tariffs, which countries would receive them, and what the amounts would be. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of yes and no. And then finally, when the tariffs kicked in, it wasn't actually the amount that was so difficult to swallow. It was the uncertainty leading up to what took place, as well as a lot of people, their jobs were affected. So we'll take a look at the employment numbers in a moment. When we look at property days on market, so how long properties are actually on the market, we're seeing a 40% increase. So properties are staying longer on the market. It's taking longer to get those properties sold. Last year, June 2024, the average days, property days on market was 30. Whereas June 2025, we're seeing 42 days on market on average. Obviously, this is an average figure, so some properties are selling quicker, some are selling at a much slower rate. Overall, properties are staying on the market longer, and that's especially evident in the condo sector, whereas freehold properties are moving, albeit slower. That's also due to the fact that we are in the summer months. There is still quite a bit more activity with respect to freehold sales, that's detached, semi-detached, freehold townhomes, compared to the condo market. Condo market region-wide is languishing simply because of the buyer sentiment, the changes in the employment sector, as well as the extremely high number of units that are for sale. 2025, we are seeing a record number of completions. These projects that were started in 2019, 2020, 2021 are completing now. So as you can imagine, with a record number of completions and an almost equal record number of buyers staying away and investors exiting the market, it's understandable that there are a lot of unsold products in the market, both on the resale side as well as the new construction, new home side. When we talk about months of inventory, and that is the number of months it would take to exhaust the inventory. So if no new listings came on the market, how long would it take for there to be no units to sell? We look at the terminology in terms of buyer's market, balanced market, and a seller's market. In most sectors of Southern Ontario, we are in a buyer's market. Buyer's market is typically when supply exceeds demand, and it is characterized by usually greater than 5 months of inventory. In many sectors, we're seeing upwards of 4.5 to 6.5, almost 7 months of inventory. And that's all, again, especially in the condo sector. So that puts those asset classes on those markets in firmly entrenched in a buyer's market territory. A balanced market is when supply equals demand. And that we typically see when there are between 3 to 5 months of inventory. That is the case in some markets, isolated markets in the GTHA, but fewer markets are in that category. A seller's market, when demand exceeds supply, we typically see that when there are fewer than 3 months of inventory. There are an extremely there's an extremely low amount of sectors that are in sellers market, very, very tiny sectors, and that's exclusively in the freehold, higher level or higher priced brackets, or the sweet spot for freehold properties, which is $1 million, $1.2 million. Those prices, those properties that are priced in those areas are seeing, in some cases, a seller's market territory because, number one, there are fewer units of that type. And number two, the demand will exceed the supply because there are buyers looking in those pockets. If we pass to the new home market, so the stats that I presented were for resale. If we pass to the Toronto, specifically Toronto new home market, we see that sales have fallen to a record low. In Toronto, a city of about let's say, I don't know, let's say 3.5 million, 4 million people conservatively, just 42 condos, new home condos sold in the city in the month of June. So this translates to region-wide, simply because when we say Toronto, it's Toronto GTA more specifically. The months of inventory for the new home market sector is 17. So if we looked at what constitutes a buyer's market when supply exceeds demand, the resale side, we have more than 5 months of inventory. On the new home sales side, there are 17 months of inventory. So that screams buyer's market. If you are in a buyer's market and you're a buyer, then buy. Take advantage of the opportunities that are available to you because this will not last forever. A buyer's market is when there are sellers who are offering unusual and very, very attractive incentives to get those buyers to make a move. They're also more willing to adjust pricing. That is, again, both on the resale side and on the new home sales side. So when things are moving briskly, we don't see price adjustments or incentives in the marketplace. What we see are long lines, multiple offers, and properties selling, at least on the resale side, for much more than what they are listed at. In a buyer's market, when the supply far exceeds the demand, we have the opposite, where there are opportunities, there are price reductions or price softening, and there are incentives to encourage people to buy. So I am stressing the point that if you are in a situation where you do want to make a move or have to make a move, now is the time to do it. The window of opportunity is now, and it's wide open. Again, it's a temporary situation, although it feels like it's lasting forever, but it's a temporary situation. And when the inventory gets eaten up, I will be talking about immigration and emigration numbers shortly. When the inventory gets eaten up, these opportunities, these incentives, and these price softening measures will disappear, all of them. So the new home sales record is at a record low with 17 months of inventory. Keep that number in mind as we move forward into the summer. There are, however, other factors that are contributing to what's happening in the market. So it's not just about interest rates or about house pricing or seller pricing. It's there are other factors. One being crime. So Canadian homeowners and renters alike have to deal with high crime violent home invasions, carjackings, and store looting. Homicides climbed significantly, 18% from 2023 to 2024, so just in a year's time. In Toronto alone, over 12,000 vehicles were stolen in Toronto. When we look at the environment, climate change, and environment factors, we then pass on to insurance rates. The Financial Services Regulatory Authority, or the FSRA, received a submission or complaint that climate change is pushing up insurance rates to unaffordable levels. Homeowners, renters need insurance. Homeowners in particular need insurance. And Ontario home insurance climbed 84% between 2014 and 2024. That's significant. Ontario has some of the most concentrated flood risks in the country, in the entire country. So a lot of properties are subject to flooding, and that is causing insurance rates to climb. Another factor is immigration and emigration. 2 of 3 people emigrated from Canada, and those were from Ontario, primarily from Ontario and BC. These 2 provinces have the highest real estate prices in the entire country and are the only 2 to see total population shrink. That too is it's normal, I guess, throughout different periods. Populations ebb and flow, they dip and they rise. But because of the particularly the economic conditions that we're in, people are more sensitive to climate change and more aware of it. Costs are increasing because of it. They're looking elsewhere. So some of the other another province that is benefiting from this migration is Alberta. Q1 2025 saw 27,000 immigrants, which from Ontario and BC, which is up 3% from last year. And Alberta, which is the only province that is attracting young people from other regions, saw an increase in its population. There are some incredible opportunities in Alberta for those that want to either invest in a second home or in a primary residence. Alberta has some incredible incentives and just general policies that encourage home ownership, favor landlords, give more rights to landlords, making it prime real estate for those that want to invest in another property. So I highly encourage people to at least be aware of the opportunities that exist in Alberta. When we go to Canada as a whole, 104,256 permanent residents. It was the lowest Q1 in 4 years. So Q1 2025 saw the lowest number of immigrants. Total arrivals are 817,000, including work and study permits. And Ontario, from July 2023 to July 2024, 197,657 new immigrants came into the province. That's a dip of 42%, or it represents 42% of the Canadian total. And so the majority of people are a huge swath of people that are arriving in Canada are coming to Ontario. So the upcoming announcements, which people need to keep in mind, inflation rate announcement is on Tuesday, July 15th. The Bank of Canada will be looking very closely at that announcement. and gearing up for its own interest rate announcement and policy announcements, which we will take a look at now. The next announcement for the Bank of Canada is on July the 30th. Since the beginning of the year, there have been 2 rate drops and 2 rate holds. We are now standing at 2.75% as the overnight lending rate. After the July 30th announcement, there is a GDP growth rate announcement, which is on Thursday, July 31st. And the unemployment rate announcement would be on Friday, August 1st. All of these figures will be taken into consideration when the Bank of Canada makes its September 17th announcement, and that will be the final announcement of the summer. There will be 2 more announcements after that in the fall. By the end of the year, most of the economists and bankers are indicating that the overnight lending rate will be around 2.25%. That has always been the goal of the Bank of Canada. So we may reach that point. It just may take a few more announcements before that happens. We may be in a holding pattern. A lot will depend on what's happening in the US over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Affordability has improved. So that is the good news in the GTA. Home ownership affordability continued to improve in June 2025, which is the good news, driven by lower prices and borrowing costs, though economic uncertainty kept many buyers cautious. That is really the operative word, is uncertainty, which continues. Market activity, June home sales totaled 6,243 units. While new listings rose 7.7%, sales increased month over month, continuing the spring tightening trend. So that is going to play out throughout the rest of the summer. Price trends. The MLS Home Price Index, which I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, was down 5.5%. The Outlook TREB official said that a US trade deal and further interest rate cuts could boost consumer confidence and stabilize prices. I'm in total agreement, though non-financial issues like rising crime are impacting housing sentiment. So there are a lot of factors that are playing into these figures. Public safety concerns. Toronto Regional Real Estate Board welcomed federal efforts to address crime with new bail reforms, but called for more funding and legal system improvements to ensure safer communities. That wraps up another insightful episode of helping you build wealth through real estate brick by brick. Remember, information is power, especially when it comes to your financial future in real estate. Following market trends, knowing the factors that affect value, and being actively engaged in the market is really the best way to stay informed and to make those important decisions. If you found this information useful, then I encourage you to like this podcast and or leave a comment. I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are on where things stand currently as we move further into the summer. And please share this episode with anyone who may find the content useful. Upcoming seminars. I'll be doing 2 seminars towards the end of the month, so before July 31st. The first one, these are Smart Moves seminars. The first one being on July 23rd, 7 p.m. in Liberty Village. The second Smart Moves seminar is on July 30th, so a week later at 7 p.m. in the Bloor-Kipling Etobicoke Junction area. Full details using the Calendly links in the show notes. You can click on the links to register for any of the seminars. I hope to see you there. Don't forget to leave a comment. My name is Nico James-Bock. All of my contact information is in the notes, and you can reach me on social. Ciao, ciao.